Australia is under fire. That insane, deep, dark vax hole called a continent out there in the ocean of Australia is attempting, it's wanted, the Prime Minister headlines that he wants to force vaccinate them with this vaccine that Peter Hotez is pretty sure isn't going to be around for a long time. Australian Prime Minister, coronavirus vaccines should be mandatory. Really? Australia considers mandatory COVID-19 vaccines for travelers entering the country. This guy's a lunatic. Luckily, he's starting to back away from some of that language. But I want to play you a news clip. This is a news clip that comes from Sky News, one of the big news agencies right in the middle of Australia. You've seen all of these things said before on the high wire, and I thought I would make these points myself this week. But sometimes it's nice to see that we are no longer alone. Real reporters, real doctors, real people around the world, powerful people are stepping up and said, we've had enough, and I don't care if I lose my job today, I'm going to tell the truth. Watch this amazing report coming out of Australia just this last week.
Sweden and Switzerland. Let's start with Sweden. Let me now quote from Friday's editorial in the UK Telegraph. Not some crazy conspiracy rag, but one of Britain's most respected newspapers. Here's what they said. So now we know Sweden got it largely right and the British establishment catastrophically wrong. And as Tegnell, Stockholm's epidemiologist king, has pulled off a remarkable triple whammy. Far fewer deaths per capita than Britain, a maintenance of basic freedoms and opportunities, and most strikingly, a recession less than half as severe as our own. Our arrogant quangocrats, says the UK Telegraph editorial, and state experts should hang their heads in shame. Their reaction to coronavirus was one of the greatest public policy blunders in modern history. All the COVID patients have disappeared. It is now 4 months since the start of the pandemic, and I haven't seen a single COVID patient in over a month, says the Swedish Dr. Rushgrove. At the peak, 3 months back, 100 people were dying a day of COVID in Sweden, a country with a population of 10 million. We are now down to around 5 people dying per day in the whole country, and that number continues to drop. The daily risk per person of getting infected is 1 in 10,000, which is minuscule. Basically, COVID is in all practical senses over and done with in Sweden. I am willing to bet, he says, that the countries that have shut down completely will see rates spike when they open up. If that is the case, then there won't have been any point in shutting down in the first place. And then there's Switzerland and the use of the drug hydroxychloroquine, banned in Victoria and Queensland for treating the coronavirus. As I have repeatedly pointed out on this show, there are now dozens of international studies that show the drug used in the correct combination with other drugs and the correct dose, it is effective. But here's the clincher. Switzerland briefly banned the drug after The Lancet claimed it was killing people. That's the medical journal. That study, you'll remember we discussed it here, was completely debunked. And 2 weeks later, The Lancet withdrew the study, and immediately Switzerland reinstated the drug. And guess what happened? During the 2 weeks, Switzerland stopped using hydroxychloroquine. Well, according to a study done by Johns Hopkins University, the consequences of suddenly stopping hydroxychloroquine can be seen by examining the case fatality ratio index for Switzerland. It can be seen that during the weeks preceding the ban on hydroxychloroquine, the index fluctuated between 3 and 5%. But after stopping outpatient hydroxychloroquine use, the country's COVID-19 deaths increased 4 times to the highest level it had been since the pandemic began, oscillating at over 10 to 15%. Then, when early outpatient hydroxychloroquine was reinstated on June the 11th, the 4-fold wave of excess lethality rapidly returned back to where it was.
In the middle of this incredible circus, in the middle of lies and deceit, destruction of our jobs, of our economy, we now see that the bright light of hope is beginning to shine through. You cannot stop the pandemics. You cannot stop the high wire. You cannot stop reporters. You cannot stop doctors and nurses from tweeting. You cannot stop the truth. You cannot stop facts. This is a terrible, dark story that is being blown apart by actual data and actual facts. The information out of Switzerland is mind-blowing. A perfect and randomized study simply because they listened to the WHO. They stopped hydroxychloroquine. Deaths went through the roof, and then they restarted it once they recognized that that paper in the Lancet was a hoax. We are waking up. You must have hope. You must support everybody that's bringing the truth now. Everybody. That was Rowan Dean. If you're in Australia, send all the love and kindness you can to Sky News for having a real reporter telling the real truth to the people.
If you like that clip, then be sure to check out our live broadcast of The High Wire every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. You can watch it on Facebook, iTunes, and Twitter. We'll see you there.